I know you love
Ugh.
UFC so much and MMA, and you do a lot of training.
Oh, I
What do you
love it
think about
so
that
much,
Adesanya?
man. It's like my own soap opera, man. I love the stories behind it. I love the technique around it. I love the fact that it challenges because it's a single. It's only one person against another person. It's a very. I find it. There's a lot of spiritual, mental things to it. The ability to overcome fear. There's consequences, dire consequences for failing, and you know that. Like I understand soccer and football and basketball, but there's something you don't put as much on the line as you do in UFC and MMA in general, just not UFC, not just UFC. UFC is like a one place. Then there's people are doing MMA all over the world, man, and UFC is just a small part of it.
So, what's your favorite part? I mean, that's a really big aspect. Is you put so much on the line, right? You put your whole self physically, and then mentally,
Mentally,
discipline, right? But what
there's
are some of
discipline
your
in it.
favorite?
There's nutrition in it. There's uh, a poker game you play with the adversary of who can see what when. There's a chess game in it. There's so many different elements in it, and there's, again, like I said, there's anxiety, there's fear, there's self-esteem. How do you deal with failures? Adesanya is a great example for this. Like Adesanya has never failed. He's had 20 fights and he won 20 fights, which is ridiculous. First of all, it's also annoying, but it's mostly ridiculous. The thing is, this guy can deal with failure, even though he never failed, as easy as he deals with success, which is incredible for me. Like you should have seen his news, whatever what you call it, like after the fight, the post
Yeah,
fight event or whatever. Mostly talks about how good the rival was and how he's okay with losing, like he's totally okay with it.
yeah, they really respected each other from the beginning to the end, like throughout the fight too. It was
Yeah,
that's always good to watch, and I really like when that happens and that feeling we all get and how we all enjoy that, which is contrary to what the media has always historically done. Is they always have the negative story is
the
what gets more
rivalry.
views, but this feels really good, doesn't it, to see two professionals
Yeah,
like really
but
appreciate each other.
it comes back to very basic human behavior where when you see a person behaves like an asshole and the other side beats the shit out of him, it just feels good. So that's another feel good kind of sentiment we have when we get that kind of response. So when McGregor loses, for example, like he was known for being an asshole. So when he loses, everybody's happy because he's an asshole. So that's another element of human behavior. And this is like triggers, man. The people who are organizing this stuff, they know what triggers to press in order to get us to watch. Um, but for me, it's not just about like I see a lot more in that than just these basic, human behaviors of being an asshole, hating, seeing somebody get beat up. I like the details of it. So that's what I'm.
So you've been training MMA. You've been doing MMA
Not a
training,
long time,
sparring.
just something like a year and a half now.
And what made you start?
Wow, a lot of things. First, I think when I grew up, I was always bullied. So there was an underdog kind of dream for me. Like one day I will grow up, and I'll be able to defend myself. Um, Second, this is what got me in. There's a different what makes me stay. That's the different. It's two different things. And I usually it's interesting in life that the thing that got you started into something not is always the reason why you stay in something. And um, so that was the first reason. The second reason was the fact that um, I felt like since I'm traveling all the time, I should be able to protect myself because I found myself already in situations where I had to protect myself and others, and I wasn't skilled for that, man. I wasn't skilled. I was, let's say, saved by the fact that I'm lucky. The fact that I'm alive today is luck. It's completely luck, because of the situations I've been to. The idea that I'm still alive is just weird. Like, that's the only word I can. Yeah, I was just lucky. So I don't want luck to survive. And it gives you more options. Like, the safer you feel, the more you feel like you can try things that you wouldn't try if you didn't feel as safe.
An opportunity to build off of that and to grow. Right?
Yeah. Oh, it's also to grow. And this is the other part, which has made me stay in MMA. And first fact is that you deal with anxiety when you go to this. And you always think that anxiety is a bad thing. And one of the fun things, and you learn a new thing, is to deal with anxiety. And anxiety comes from different things, but it comes from the fear of getting hurt. It comes from the fear of what other people think of you, which is a very basic fear for anxiety for most people. And then it becomes different. Then what happens is you start to say, this is part of the game. Anxiety is, so accept it, try to deal with it. So it's a very spiritual, mindful kind of way for me to look at anything I learn. But MMA is different. MMA has consequences. That's what I said. So it's kind of different. It's like surfing in a way that if you fail, this has consequences. So I like that. I like high stakes game. I think you should live interestingly in life. That's one of the things I love about life, that you can just decide how involved you want to be in life. You can decide to just live in a small bubble, or you can decide to try everything. And
the differences there for people, like in a general sense, what's the outcome?
I can tell you from my experience. Again, I'm not anyone special in that way, but we talked about this. I try a lot of stuff. I try, and the response in the beginning is always the same. The response is fear. Everything starts with fear, because you're getting out of your comfort zone, and people hate getting out of the comfort zone. Hate it. And I love my comfort zone. But I also know what's the advantages of getting out of your comfort zone. So I know that this is a price I'm willing to pay to expand the way I live.
What's the benefit? What's the reward for getting out of your comfort zone?
So many. It's just insane. First, like in MMA, dancing, whatever, you see connections everywhere. You understand how things work. And if you have a curious mind, it's part of who you are. It's impossible not to do it. Like, if you're curious about the world, it's impossible not to try things for a lot of people, because you want to try things because it's interesting for you to see how things work, to see what does it bring you. And it's hard when you try something and you fail, and I failed so many things. It's hard to do it again. It's easier to give up.
But you have to, right? Because you can't expect to do it right in the first time. We all have to expect a failure here and there. Like, how can we overcome that then? Like, what do you have any advice? What's worked for you to like keep going, to try it again after a failure?
So I think the first time, so I think that some things are more natural for us, and some things are less natural for us. I don't believe in talent per se, but I do believe some things are more natural for some people. And sticking to the stuff that you know that you're good at makes life easier, but not as interesting. So I stuck to the things I knew for most of my life, and I found them a bit boring. And I think if you have any kind of sense of adventure in your life, or you want to create a sense of adventure, or you want excitement, or you want to feel, to know more, to understand more, you need to overcome that basic fear and of failing also. And I think surf was the first thing that I understood what happens after you overcome failure, because I failed so many times in surf, like so many times. Like for a year, 2 years, 3 years, I think most of the time I just felt like I'm never going to be good at this. But I persevered through fear. And again, surfing has real life consequences. I got injured many, many times, but the fact that I persevered got me to a level which makes me feel, I know that I have this place where I can go and feel good whenever I want.
That's surfing you're talking about? Is that feeling, that place?
Yeah.
So what's that feeling like?
Home.
Surfing feels like home?
Yeah.
Beautiful. What aspects of surfing? Because when I envision surfing, you got the water, and that comes the feeling. Could be cold, could be warm. You got the sounds of all kinds of stuff. That maybe fear of the wave coming, the maybe other people there, the sand,
all
so
of
many
it.
things. What, all of it?
So it starts with the basic thing of nature. There's not so many things that you can really immerse yourself in nature, be part of nature. There are things, but they're limited in number. It is not like an insane amount of them. Okay, you can hike, you can skydive, you can climb, rope climb. There is things, but they're not that many. And every time you do an activity which immerses you in nature, you feel alive. That's the first thing. The second is there's a challenge always. It's never going to bore you. So that's the feeling that whenever I get into the water, I don't know what to expect. I like that. And there's a point where you feel confident of your ability to deal with whatever comes. And that is transferable. Like once you can deal with that, whatever comes, because nature will never be the same, right? Mm-hmm. You understand that you can deal with a lot of stuff in real life. So there's a lot of there's been tons of books written about the comparing life to surf. There's so many sayings like you can't change the waves, but you can learn to surf. There's so many like cliche kind of things, but it's real. But it doesn't have to be surf. You understand? It doesn't have to be that specific thing. I just learned from surf, and what I want now, for me, when continuing learning, is to find more stuff like that because it feels so good.
What else have you found? Because there's MMA that is
MMA surf.
Yeah. But how are they similar, real quick? Because there's MMA is not a nature thing.
No, but it's still an anxiety thing. It's still understanding how things work. It's still understanding that every person you fight is completely different. And it's learning to trust yourself. That you're not going to be a complete idiot and, kill yourself.
Yeah, this is similar, because in surfing, if you're a complete idiot, you could definitely kill yourself.
I was in those situations where I felt like a complete idiot because I was almost killing myself. That's not a fun feeling, but you need to get over that. Once you get past that stage, and I think in MMA, I'm getting to that stage. There's still a way to go, but I'm getting there. And I have to say, it's easier.
I really love
my
that.
Second time around.
Second time around what?
Of doing something that scares the shit out of me and pushing through it.
You've done that a couple times. I mean,
yeah, but this has been more like surfing. I think nothing scared me in my life more than surfing in MMA. After you get hit in the face a couple of times, man, your body does not like it. Your mind does not like it. Nobody likes to get hit in the face. Unless you have a weird fetish, I don't know. But in general, nobody likes to get hit in the face. So after you get hit, your first reaction is your mind tells you, I don't want to do this again. But there's rewards. Past that stage, there's always rewards.
What happens after you get punched? Like, what are the rewards?
You understand it's not that bad. It's like in surfing, the same thing. Once you get wiped out a couple of times. So today, for example, I went surfing, yesterday, and it's bigger. Used to be really scared from big waves. Now it's 8 feet now. Yesterday was 8 feet, 7 feet, I don't know. And I took a wave, it went into a barrel kind of thing. It closed over me and it destroyed me. Like completely feel like this level of pain coming for your body. And I just said, cool, let's do it again. And I went and did it again and I got crushed again. And it just feels like you have that ability to deal with stuff as it goes, even if it's not the expected result, you still can deal with it.
Yeah, it's that fear that we have been facing, or we've been fearing for so long. It finally comes. It's everything that it is, and then we compare that, or it's over. First of all, it's over, and then the second thing is, well, it's always not nearly as bad as we anticipated, right? And then moving forward is like you've gone through a door, and now you're in this new place where things are less anxiety, so things would be brighter and more beautiful, and you're more connected with all that and be able to live happier. That's some profound stuff there.
Yeah, and again, I don't think there's anything really wrong with anxiety. Anxiety has been around for thousands of years and has protected us as a species not to get killed from things that try to eat us. But you need to accept that why anxiety is there. And after you accept it, it's easier to deal with it. It's never gonna completely go away. If anybody tells you, and this is what I call false pretenses, like a lot of people say things. And again, I'm not judging them. In their world, they believe in what they're saying and it's okay. But a lot of people will say, yeah, if you do something, or we talked about meditation. So if we meditate, anxiety will just go away. Fear goes away. Desire goes away. Not true. It doesn't go away. The way you react to it, the way you relate to it changes. And that's a completely different thing.
Cool. So let's talk about your journey to like learn all this stuff. Like, how did you learn, or where did you start in learning how to not change the environment, not change the setting, or what's the word I'm looking for, like a stimulus, but instead change how you react to that? Because I know that you lived with monks before, and I'm hoping that we get to that part of the story, because I'm particularly interested.
Yeah, I know.
In what's that like?
I'll start with. So it's hard to know exactly where to start, but I was always inquisitive. I always wanted to know how things work. And one of the most interesting to understand how things work is how your own mind works or other people's mind work. That's like so when I started my bachelor's, I started philosophy and physics, which physics is kind of how things work, why things work. And then I moved to social science, which was how society works. And then I became like a communist, like everybody in their 20s, when you try to, I want to fuck the system, and there's like a bad guy there and whatever. I was very anti everything. And then I went traveling and I discovered meditation for the first time.
While traveling?
While traveling, the age of 26, 27.
How'd that happen?
Random, like most things in life. I think a lot of things start with random. I got to a place in Guatemala, and it's a place called San Marcos, and they have a beautiful place called, I think, Las Piramidas. That's the name of the place. They still exist, I think. I don't know if COVID killed them, but they existed till pre-COVID, I think. And I started meditating there. And I had all these revelations, and you have this kind of thoughts, like very, very extreme thoughts that come up when you meditate for the first time, when you have no idea what's going on, because your mind just goes insane. And it felt good. It felt really good. And so I'm like, was intrigued. So I said, okay, what do I do with this now? So I went to study my master's in theology, which is basically comparative religion studies, which in general means that you study all religions.
And the practice of when you started meditating, that feeling and how great that was.
I had no idea what I'm doing. I had no idea what I'm doing.
But that made you interested in theology.
Yeah. Because I think especially spiritual experiences, and this is one of the things I want to talk about today, is especially spiritual experiences can be addictive as a lot of other stuff. People are, I think, less aware of it, of spiritual addiction. It's a thing. Not a lot of people talk about it, but I think I got like my first taste of the drug, and I just wanted to feel it. So my idea was, if I go and study comparative religion, most probably I will learn of other methods that are out there to experience. Which is actually true. The first year I studied was exactly that. Like I learned Buddhism, which I've never learned before. I've learned about Hinduism with an amazing lecturer about yoga philosophy. Didn't know anything about that before. I've learned on Kabbalah. I've learned about Sufism in Islam. Sufism is a kind of a occult kind of thing in Islam, in Islam religion. So every religion has their own version of the spiritual, the things which are not established religion, the things which are, how do I say, another spiritual, just spiritual, like in a specific definition about spiritual experiences. So how do you transcend? How do you transcend your limitations, your ego, all that stuff? And every religion has their own kind of solution for that problem of your mind in some ways. And I was really attracted to the Eastern ones.
I just wanted to repeat that. That's pretty, I mean, that's a really big deal, is if each religion has their own methodology on how to overcome your mind.
Overcome your mind, overcome your problems, overcome attachment, and also have this. Sam Harris in his book talks about the effect of MDMA and what it does and how it changes your perception. So all religions were always interested in how do you get to these kind of feelings with no drugs. So some religions still, like shamanistic religions, still think drugs, or they think that drugs are part of the thing, and some religions don't think. So they try to find their own way, or drugs are just not available in their country. You understand what I'm saying? Like, still sadhus in India, for example, they smoke weed like insane. That's part of their thing. If you go in India, like in any kind of street, and there's sadhus are basically people who sit on the ground and they just have no clothes on, and they're basically yogis for years and years and years, and they have no possession, nothing. They smoke some serious stuff, man. I've seen their, like, every joint is like the size of a, it's insane.
Like a piece of sage. It looks like
Yeah.
a giant piece
Yeah,
of sage.
yeah. They smoke a lot.
And are they the ones that are painted white?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. What are they called?
Sadhus.
Sadhus. And do
Sadhus is
they?
kind of holy man in India. Like, that's the idea. So people come to them, and most probably they give them like donations or some things like that, so they can survive.
Are they the type that will self-deprecate? I don't know if that's the word. Like harm themselves and like mutilate themselves to try and harm the body to rise
It's
above
a
that?
thing. It doesn't have to be a part of it. It's not like a necessity. Like, that in other religions like Christianity, there is a self kind of, when you punish yourself to get to that experience. Like, you beat yourself up. I'm sure you've seen in a lot of movies like this kind of guy who just beats himself up in the back.
Yeah, there's like
there's a lot of
Angels and Demons. That one dude was doing that, and then they have a lot of different cases.
So everybody, every religion has been trying to ask the questions, which are philosophical questions, of course, of how do you transcend, and try different methods. Some work better for some people, some work for other, and so forth. A lot of this stuff is still in part of a mainstream religion. For example, the fact that you to pray for something, that's a spiritual effective method. It works for a lot of people. So there's a lot of good stuff in religion, but there's a lot of bad stuff in religion. Again, good and bad is very comparative, but there's a lot of stuff which is not the essence of religion, essence of spirituality. Of course. So I was more interested not in religion. I was more interested in spirituality, and specifically in ways, practices that people do to transcend to whatever.
So how did you pursue that goal, that yearning to learn those things?
So first, by just doing my master's, and while I was doing my master's, I went to India to an ashram and had a teacher and studied some Sanskrit. That's the language people use to read and write in what you call ancient Indian, and all the sacred texts are written. It's like the Bible. Most of their Bible is written in Sanskrit. So it's a language which you need to learn if you want to go deeper. But the problem with university, specifically in the time that I was there, it's hard to learn practical stuff in a university. So I kind of, at a certain point, I just gave up. And a lot of things happened in my life, so I kind of left that field completely for a bunch of years. But what I believe about life is whenever you disregard a part of who you are, the world, energy, whatever you want to call it, will come and kick you back in the ass. That's what I believe that happens. And I believe that's why a lot of people feel like things happen to them again and again and again. I think that in some ways it's just the world telling you, get your shit together and start going where you need to go. So yeah, denying who you are and denying what you feel inside is not a good thing to do for a time. But I was chasing the same things that most people were chasing in the West, I think. And I was chasing money, and I was chasing girls, and I was chasing status, and I went to work, and that's what I got there. Like, I kept improving. My salary got like better and better and better, and I got promotions again and again, and I was pretty good at what I did, but something was not there. It's not even important what I did. I was teaching, which is, again, a part of who I am, but I wasn't teaching the right things that I wanted to teach. And it
You
wasn't
weren't
interesting.
passionate about those things.
I was in some ways, but it wasn't. It was more about money, status, all that stuff. Showing to other people that I can do stuff. It was also a challenge mentally for me to, I did a master's in theology, and then I went to work in IT, which is, what's the connection? And I became really good at it. I earned a lot of money, and officially I did all of this without a degree that has anything to do with it. So everything was self-knowledge that I studied by myself. So it was kind of proving myself that I can study alone, learn things alone, and still be good at it.
Man, and that was even before YouTube and before the internet as it is today, where you could learn.
I'm not that old, okay? There was internet, but usually we used books. Yeah, we used a lot of books, and I had to do a lot of research, and it was challenging. And in certain ways, I wanted that challenge. I wanted to prove myself something. And it wasn't. Yeah, it was the right thing. Maybe, again, life is always will throw at you what you need. In some ways, if you open enough, and maybe I needed that at that time. I don't know. But then what happens is, again, like I told you, when life wants you to do something and you don't, there's consequences always. And I think, and my consequence was just insane depression. That was me not being aligned with who I am and what I want to do and what's interesting in life for me. And yeah, that was what happened.
So how long did you suffer that consequence of depression before
2 years.
you made a change?
And
then what happened?
2 really bad years.
How'd you get out? Most people don't get out for a long time unless you got this big changing event. Is that when you started traveling the world?
Yeah. I was just desperate. Like, I decided that if I don't make an insane change, this is not going to end well.
So how'd you go? Where'd you go to your next place? How'd you decide your path, or where'd you go?
So again, I knew already. So one of the things that happens when you're depressed, I'm not going to go too much into depression because it's a huge subject, and it's a very interesting subject for me also, and this is one of the things I want to help other people with. But one of the things that happens when you're depressed is you think that nothing in life gives you joy. So I knew one thing that gave me joy that I remembered from a long, long time ago, before I started all this job, which was meditation. So I said, okay, where's the best place to do meditation? India. That's what I knew. And I read like Eat, Pray, Love before. We talked about this, but I read Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert, I think. And she does this life journey of a year, 4 months in India, 4 months in Italy, 4 months in Bali. And I said, let's try it. So I went to India, found a place online called Shivananda. And I knew Shivananda before because I went to their place in Israel. They are a world organization. Now, just to clarify about things, the way ashrams work, or spiritual organizations in India or India based, the way they work is there was usually a master, a guru. A guru is a teacher. There was usually a master many, many years ago. And he had a bunch of following because everybody thought he was very enlightened. Either local following by Indians, or if he was really big, he started to become international. Usually the way that Indian gurus became international was to come to the US. That was the main way of Indian gurus becoming international. They would mostly come to California, which is an interesting thing because California attracts a lot of gurus. So they come here, become famous, get money, go back to India, open a bunch of ashrams, and they become like I don't know if it's a chain, but it's very similar. Like it's a Starbucks, but for spirituality. And they provide a service, which is an interesting thing. And so Shivananda is one of these gurus. He was alive. I don't know the exact, I don't care that much about gurus today. I used to care more, but I'm not a person who believes in following a certain person. I never think the person is important, and I always think the message is important. And the person is just a random person who happened to get an audience and all of that. So I'm not that interested in the person itself. So Shivananda specifically was around the West around 100 years ago. He was one of the first people who's done this. And he went back, opened a bunch of ashrams. He has ashrams in Israel, ashrams here in the US, I think in Europe, all over the world. So basically you go to this place and there's like a very specific kind of way of living for foreigners. Some ashrams are open for foreigners, some ashrams are not open for foreigners, which is an interesting difference. You would think that the ashrams open for foreigners are less good, and you're right. I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of differences between both of them. How you get accepted.
Different Kool-Aid they give you. You have different Kool-Aid to drink.
Yeah, the price is also different.
Price.
Yeah, officially ashrams are, I think for Indians, again, I'm not sure on what I'm saying because Westerners are usually not allowed on these places. But for Indians, usually they come as kids or they come as adults and they start to become part of that. So that's your life.
Do many of them kids
they become monks?
Or they're there and they're usually there for their whole life? They don't usually get out, or what's that kind of?
Depends. Like again, it's still a free country. You officially, India is a democracy, so it's officially a free country. So you can leave if you want, but not all of them leave, and not all of them. So it's the same with Buddhism and monks in Buddhism. It's very similar in a lot of ways. I think one of the main differences, again, in India is there's always, most of the time, there's a guru. There's a person, dead or alive, who's in charge. Even after he dies, he's still in charge because he has books that people keep following. He has people who follow him that became teachers. So they are now preaching his way. There's even videos. This is insane. Like some of the ashrams, you watch videos of this guy who's dead already, talking. And a lot of these people in India have a lot of YouTube videos, and they have a huge following around the world. In their prime, they had millions of people following them, which is insane.
Yeah,
to a point where if they would say something, people would do anything they said.
Yeah, that became evident in they have a really good docu-series on Netflix called
the West Wild West, right? With Osho.
Wild Country. Yeah,
Wild Country, sorry. Yeah, so the story of Osho is a very good story to represent that kind of the dark side of gurus and Osho. That's one of the reasons I'm very against gurus. Because in the end of the day, they're human. And humans have a difficulty, let's say, with power. Once you give them power, it's hard for them to give it up.
Yeah.
And again, they're human, exactly like everybody else. I think the fact that we put them on this pedestal of like, they're amazing and the rest of us are just basic human beings and they're like an upgraded version of that. It creates a problem. Because it stops being a way of learning and evolving the follower and more of just being a subject of that person.
Yeah.
So it becomes a power structure.
So
And
what,
that's
how much is there a power structure, a hierarchy of masters and students in the ashrams?
so the ashrams of the, I've been to both ashrams of dead people and I've been to ashrams of alive people. Alive is completely different. When they're alive, it's very clear. It's very, very clear what's going on. It's weirdly enough, it was a woman. I don't know if I told you about her. Her name, she's still super famous. She has an insane following. Her name is Emma, and they call her Emma the Hugger. She hugs people. And every time she hugs people, there's an event, and thousands of people wait in line to hug her.
Wow.
I think it's a nice thing. Like, again,
Yeah.
it's a nice thing because she has good energy and whatever. But what they made her, like, to see a live guru in life and the way that other people admire, it scares the shit out of me, because this can never end well. Like, when I see that,
It's blind
this
following.
blind following, that's not, for me, that's not human development, that's human submission. It's a completely different kind of human trait, which, in my opinion, again, I disagree with. So it's my opinion again, but some people think that through devotion you can get to that, but I don't think the same. I don't believe it's easier.
So
I think,
sorry.
yeah, keep asking the question.
So when I've had this fantasy for a while, since I started on this path of like asking questions and seeking and then growing, what I imagine like living with monks would be such an incredible learning experience. What is the routine like? You know, like what's the daily
Okay.
life like in a monk? Like, do you have
So
a
we going,
schedule that shows?
yeah,
This
we
time
going back to different things now. So ashrams are usually in India or in the Western world, and monasteries are in other places, including India and including Western world. And there's kind of a difference between them. So I'll start, because we're in this part of the story, I'll start with how it is in an ashram. An ashram, you wake up really early, you meditate, then what you do is, usually there's like a devotion part. Indian philosophy, yoga philosophy, is based on many, many things, but a lot of people would agree that it's based on like 8 pillars, which the 8 pillars, one of them, I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but one of them is called bhakti. And bhakti is basically devotion. So a huge part of yoga philosophy, or a big part of yoga philosophy, is devotion to something. When we talk about devotion to something in yoga philosophy, it's usually devotion to the gods. There'll be a lot of ceremonies, usually singing and doing all of kind of, candles and all that kind of stuff, which you sing to the gods as devotion. And in yoga philosophy, they believe that's one of ways to get to that higher plane. And in yoga philosophy in general, the main purpose is to be united with the divine. Keep that in mind, because it's a completely different story with Buddhism. So monasteries in Buddhism are completely different in their perception and their main goal and what they want to achieve. It's much harder to talk about a secular yoga philosophy. When you say yoga in India, you mean something. In the West, it doesn't mean anything even close. But in India, it means a way of a path. We talked about this before, that there's many paths to get to transcendence, to get to human development, human psyche, human improvement, or whatever. Yoga philosophy is one of the paths, and that path includes meditation, It includes physical exercises, which you know, or most Westerners know as yoga. That's one part of it. There's a lot of meditation, which is a specific kind of meditation, which is usually concentration meditation. But you usually concentrate on a specific object. And there's devotion, which is usually done by singing, by praising the Lords, by having like a guy, like a, you know, like in the movies, you always see like a statue or of a god, Ganesh or some guy, and you pray for him or whatever.
Yeah, the statues. I don't like the statue aspect of things. It seems
so
like
the West has a lot of problems with the. That's why yoga has been reduced to such a small thing of the whole thing, because you had to adapt it to Western idea, which we don't want someone to infringe on our religious liberties. So you can't tell me what to believe in or something like that. But yoga philosophy, part of it is believing in something. And in this case, it's the divine. It can be a specific God, but it's also about the divine, which a divine is hard to articulate exactly what it is, but it's kind of a non-changing kind of energy that unites everything. So that's their, in yoga philosophy, that's their desire. They want that to be part of that all-encompassing divine energy.
They want to unify themselves with
exactly.
that oneness of everything. That's yoga, and that is in.
By the way, the word yoga, which kills me every time I hear that. I don't know why I get upset by it, but I used to get upset. Now it's less. But the word yoga itself means union. That's it. That's the word yoga. It doesn't mean exercise. It doesn't mean anything. It just means union. That's it. So when people talk about yoga, it just kind of, funny that how it was reduced to such a small thing of the whole picture.
Yeah, now, I get really upset. No, I don't get upset, but like I noticed that when I first started doing yoga, when I moved out to California, before I started doing yoga, I learned about this whole yogic culture in India. And that was like the original yoga, the true yoga, like you're talking about. And when I came over here, there's just everybody saying, "Oh, I'm a yogi. I'm a yogi. I'm a yogi." It's like, what? You? It's like, oh no, you're just saying that you like to practice the physical part of yoga on a mat. Oh, okay, I got you. You're a yogi. Got it.
Yeah. So again, names and subjects are not that important. I used to be, because I come from a very, academic world, and I kind of like definitions and stuff like that, but they're not important. Mm-hmm. They're just ways to understand things.
Yeah, and like this example with the ashram versus a monastery, it's just two different ways to understand the same thing, right?
So just a little about the schedule. So we talked about this. So you start with the meditation, then you go to what you call like singing. You do like a half an hour of singing, and then you move to some physical yoga practice. And then there's, I think somewhere in there there's lunch. And then after lunch, you have like a period of asking questions to one of the monks. And after you finish that, you repeat. It's basically rinse, repeat. You just keep doing this for days, every day, the same thing. So you just meditate, do physical yoga, do bhakti yoga, which is the devotion. And there's also karma yoga, which is, again, one of the pillars that I told you. There's 8 different kinds of yoga. Mm-hmm. And karma yoga is basically any kind of activity that you do which doesn't really have a goal. It's doing for the sake of doing, and doing it the best way. I'll give you an example. Cleaning the room, cleaning the ashram, making food, cleaning the dishes. All of this stuff is part of karma yoga. And one of the differences between Western ashrams and the more local ones is the fact that in a local one, you're gonna work a lot. Otherwise, they just kick you out of the place. So that's one of the reasons. You don't pay for the thing, but you need to put in a lot of work to not being kicked out. So you clean the floors, you do all of that. And the ashrams I've been to, karma yoga is usually an hour to 2 hours of the day, which is not a lot.
And then the lunch, what time is that, and what food do they give?
So in yoga philosophy, in some yoga philosophy, in Sava Yoga gurus, there's a concept that there's some foods are bad for you and some foods are good for you. It has nothing to do with nutritional value or anything like that. Most ashrams will be completely vegetarian and not vegan, vegetarian, and there will be basically no garlic and no onion. And the reason for that is they believe that garlic and onion are raja, which means intense energy. It lifts you up, but it makes you restless. So it's not good for meditation. So you're not allowed to put garlic and onion, which is weird because as I grew up, garlic and onion are the basic ingredients of every Indian dish. Turns out you can make amazing food without garlic and onion, because I've been a long time in these ashrams, never eaten garlic and onion, and the food was still amazing. So one of the advantages of ashram, by the way,
a bowl of, is the good food. Yeah, being fed. That's something that I'm enticed by. But they don't just give you a bowl of rice then.
No, again, don't mix different philosophies. Bowl of rice is in Buddhism and yoga philosophy, because it comes from India. There's Indian food, and it's really good Indian food. So
Indian food is one of the best. Yes.
If you're into ashrams, if you want to try an ashram, don't let food be your deterrent, because it's a problem. It's so good that it's a problem, because you're sitting in a meditation and you're thinking is what they're going to have for lunch. That's how you think, and that's not good for you as a meditation.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the
yoga,
the things that haven't worked for you. I would love to not discourage people from meditating.
No. Again,
good things about it. Like what has been working for you?
Again, separate yoga philosophy from mindfulness. So then I went to a monastery, and then I experienced for the first time mindfulness meditation, which is a different way of meditating. And it clicked from the very first second. I knew there's something there. I knew that I feel like it's more constructive. And the biggest thing here is, just for the listeners who don't understand exactly what's the difference between mindfulness and concentration meditation, whatever. In Buddhism, what happened is they understood that there's something missing in yoga philosophy. Now, of course, yoga philosophy and Buddhist philosophy kept interacting with each other. So there's a lot of effects. Also in India, some ashrams use a lot of things from Buddhist philosophy. But it's like a give and take. You understand? Like they both learn from it, from that evolution. But Buddhism, in some ways, is an evolution of yoga philosophy. So it added to yoga philosophy. There's a lot of differences. I'm not going to go into it. One of the differences is there's no gods in mindfulness. There's no gods in Buddhism in general. Even though people popularly believe there's gods and stuff, there's no gods there, which is one of the biggest differences. The other thing is, concentration meditation is about transcending and be united with the one, okay? That's what we talked about in yoga philosophy. In mindfulness philosophy, or Buddhist philosophy, that's not the goal. There's a different goal. And the goal is basically, one of the goals is nirvana, of course, which is a very buzzword today of nirvana. Nirvana is like being in a state where you need nothing, you want nothing, and bliss. It's not a very right way of saying that. A lot of the things that we learn from Eastern philosophy is again reduced to very basic things that are easy to understand. But Buddhist philosophy is not that easy to understand. And it's very logical. This is one of the reasons I love it a lot. And I think you would, like, if any person who's logical goes into mindfulness, there's a lot of beautiful logic in it. And Buddhism in general. Buddhist is it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then you do 5, 6, 7, 8, then you do, and there's stages, very, very, very clear stages in your development. So in mindfulness or in Buddhist meditation, where I went to a monastery, they have a game plan. They really have a game plan. They produce these books, and I have to say that this is a specific tradition. Okay, so don't generalize, never generalize about anything, but this is a specific tradition that is typical to Thai forest tradition, which is one of the traditions of Buddhism. Okay, and in Thai forest tradition, they believe in spreading the word. They believe there's different kinds of Buddhism, and this kind of Buddhism, which is called Mahayana, they believe in spreading the word. And one of the ways that they spread the word, they produce books which have game plans. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, stage 5. Nirvana. It's basically like that. I carried that book. I kind of lent the book from the monastery, and I've been carrying it around the world, which is funny. And then there you just read a game plan of how to get from point A to point Z, and they just tell you.
Do you know the name of that, or I want to find
it's a very specific, the monastery I've been to, they produce it. So I'm not sure you can find it, but I also don't remember the name of the monastery. It was next to a small town called Pai, which is very famous with travelers because it's a very touristic town. So if you look in Google, I'm sure you can find like the name of that place. It's been a while. It's been like 4 years since I've been there, so I don't remember all the details.
Pai in Thailand?
Yeah, Pai in Thailand.
You spell Pai?
Exactly like you hear it, Pai.
Okay.
It's a cool.
Not I-E. Okay.
It's not a pie like you eat, like a pie. It's more like the pie, the number. Anyway, so. Anyway.
Because that's P-I, but anyway.
You're right. My mistake. I admit. So what you do in the monastery, you try to do what is called Vipassana. Vipassana is a word that has been brought to the West, and again, been a lot of words that come from the East have just become reduced. We talk about this again and again, but it happens a lot. And Vipassana basically means looking. And the question is, what do you look at? And the idea in Vipassana meditation, which the West has, by the way, translated to mindfulness, is just looking at your mind. Looking at what's going on in your mind all the time. Being aware of what's going on in your mind all the time. And when you do that, again, there's stages, and I'm not going to go into all the stages, but when you do that, you start to see a lot of patterns. Things that appear again and again and again in your head. And that is the true power of mindfulness. And yoga philosophy, it's more about, I don't care what goes on in my mind. Let's just go get high. That's basically what goes on in my perception of yoga philosophy. That's how I felt it, how I experienced it, is that you kind of ignore what goes on in your mind. You just go straight to the, I want to feel good. And Vipassana and mindfulness meditation, it's more about you need to be aware and you need to acknowledge. And once you acknowledge, and basically Buddhism talks about 5 kind of things that appear again and again in your head. And it's called 5, but somehow it becomes 10. Buddhists love numbers. You have to, this is something you have to understand about Buddhism. If you go to Buddhism teaching, with a monk and everything, they will start killing you with numbers. It's worse than history. They just keep telling you numbers. There's 5 this, and there's 10 this, and there's 20 this, and there's 30 this, and you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about anymore. That was my first. I remember I went to Delhi to a Buddhist teaching, and I remember all they talked about was numbers. There's 5 hindrances, and there's 20 this, and there's 30. I'm like, leave me alone with the numbers. So, and it's never the right number. It's always they say 5, but somehow you count it and it's 20. So they're very logical. They're very like this. I like it about them. They're a bit too logical. So you need to find your own thing. Like I said, there's no one path that is the perfect path for anyone. You need to create your own thing. So one of the things that they say, and I like, and I agree with, is a certain emotions that go to your head, or thoughts that are connected to emotions that go to your head that keep repeating themselves. The main ones are usually anger, fear, anxiety. Everybody knows that. Desire. Desire is maybe the most misconstrued term in the West compared to the East.
More than the word yoga.
Yeah, but this is even worse, okay? Because desire in us always comes with something with lust. Like we need something. We want food. We want to push some food into our mouth. We want to have a beautiful girl. We want to have these material things and all that. That is kind of the concept of desire. In Buddhism, desire is basically wanting anything to be different than what it is, which is a huge, huge difference. The idea that you want life to be different than what it is now is desire. And we all feel it all the time. We all have this self-improving, I want to improve all the time. Even meditation has become part of it. One of the traps of meditation is desiring to become better. If you come with that mindset of, I desire to be better, that's why I go meditate, you're starting it wrong. You're starting not wrong, you're starting in a non-constructive way, a non-beneficial way for you.
So what should be the goal when you start in?
So we talk about the hindrances of what disturbs you from meditation. So desire is one of them, right? Or to be in peace of mind. So desire, anger, anxiety, fear, all that stuff. And then it goes to what you and I talked about, the difference between being and doing. This is one of my favorite things that come from Buddhist teaching. And the difference between being and doing is simple. When you're doing, you're always trying to change things as they are. When you're being, you just are. And in meditation, what you want to try to do is just be. Don't try to create something. Don't try to change something. Just be there. Watch. And again, it sounds like an easy concept to understand, but it's a way harder thing to do. So the idea of how you, and this is, I'm going to go a bit how you meditate. Yes, and what's so the way that I've been taught by Buddhist monks, both there in the West, and both where I study right now, is the idea is you meditate by seeing what things are, and then really, first of all, you need to accept them. That means that when we say accept them, again, acceptance is a hard thing to explain, but when you say accept it, is to actually completely feel them. So let's say you feel something like loneliness. What's the first reaction that every person has when they feel lonely?
They probably reach for something, their
Either
phone or a drink or the video game, or I don't know, something to distract them from their
exactly. So we're looking for distractions. Sorry, my bad pronunciation. But we're looking for someone to avoid, someone or something to avoid that feeling, either drugs, people, whatever. In mindfulness meditation, Buddhist meditation, you don't try to avoid it. You try to experience in a complete way. First, you don't judge it. You're not supposed to. You don't feel this is a bad feeling. Loneliness is not inherently bad or good. It's the image that we connect to that, the context that we have for that makes it bad or good. But by itself, loneliness is just an emotion.
Yeah. So how do we meditate
with loneliness?
Yeah.
What you do is you try to see where in your body do you feel it.
Where would you think that you would feel it?
So for me, it comes from an experience also, and I've been doing this for a while. So I'm more and more aware. It's hard in the beginning. It's hard to see it. It's hard to because we have thoughts. So the thoughts distract us from the feeling that we get. So different people feel it in different ways. But the way I feel it, usually loneliness, is I feel like a dark ball in my stomach, in the center of my stomach. And then what happens, I try to reach in and just completely feel it. Completely understand what's going on, not here, but here. Just let the feeling run through me.
So what happens when you start doing that for the first time people, if they want to try this? What do you think? What should they expect they'll feel?
Again, we're talking about different stages of the same thing, but just for people who've been experiencing mindfulness meditation or try to do mindfulness meditation, a lot of people they're in the point where they're trying to somehow control the thoughts. Or I've heard a lot of misconceptions about mindfulness. Like you try to control your thoughts, or you try to clear your mind, or that's not what's going on there. What's going on is, as time goes by and you're able to clear your mind better and better to see what's going on in your mind, because your mind will never be completely clear. It doesn't work. Our mind, human mind, doesn't work like that. But once something happens and you're aware and you're looking at it, then you try to feel it in your body. It's one of the methods. There's a couple of methods. That's what works for me. I feel it in my body completely. I don't try to push it away. I don't try to say this is bad feeling. Something's wrong with me that I'm lonely. Something's wrong with me that I'm angry. Something's wrong with me that I'm upset. Something wrong with me that I reacted to some way. That's not what meditation does. Meditation is about staying in that moment. Not trying to kick it away. Not trying to say, I'm better this. Ooh, I'm mindful. How am I feeling this way? This is wrong. The second you say about something in your mind that is wrong, then you're not accepting it anymore. And that is a hard stage to go to. It's a difficult stage. And this is what scares most people. Because the more you do it, the more you realize what goes in your mind. It can scare you. It can really scare you, because there's a lot of stuff goes in your mind that underneath it, there's a lot of things that try to get accepted. There's a lot of different things, parts of you which are trying to get accepted by you, which is weird because you're observing your own mind, and you see different parts of your mind which you are not accepting. For example, Jack Confield, which is a person I've been meditating according to, he's one of the Western teachers. So he went to the East, he went to all these monasteries and came back. And he wrote books, and he became like a great teacher here in the West. Super famous in that mindfulness world. One of the things he talks about there is about sexual desire. And he says that in all his meditation, he used to have fantasies. There's something called in monasteries, there's something called about the Vipassana Crush. So what happens is your mind has nowhere to go. So you see a beautiful girl, and it happens, by the way, both ways, girls and it doesn't matter. And you see a beautiful girl, and then you start fantasizing, and you can't talk with them, right? Because it's Vipassana. And all you think about is, if I talk with this girl, if I talk with this guy, we're going to fall in love, and it's going to be amazing. And this whole, your mind, when it gets bored, creates stuff all the time. It creates insane stories.
Movies are playing.
Movies, whatever. It's just, I think if you just could record all the stuff that goes up in people's minds when they meditate, you can have some really good movies, like really good books, really good movies. It's insane. Like, I heard stories from other people, the things that went through their mind while they were meditating. It's just insane. But the thing is, he talks about sexual desire, and he says that one of the things, and this is one of the things that you need to do when you meditate, is once you feel it completely, that loneliness, or in this case, the sexual desire, let it run. Let it go where it wants to. You want to fantasize. Just go crazy with that. No problem with that. What you do, but what you're trying to see is, why is it going there? Why is my mind always creating these fantasies when I let it stay and do whatever it wants? And usually what you find is underneath there's something waiting for acceptance, and you're not accepting it. In John Coffin's case, it was loneliness. So he was avoiding the idea that he feels lonely. So his desire was just a way to compensate for that. In his mind created the story. This is the stories we create. That if he had his whole fantasy happen, he would stop feeling lonely. That's how your mind works. It creates consequences. It says, okay, if this and this happened, this is desire, of course. If this and this happened, this would not, I wouldn't feel this way anymore. And this is a very Western classic way of dealing with stuff. If something happens, then I'll feel better.
Right, like a means to an end.
Yeah, mindfulness or Buddhist meditation is, it's not if I do something, but if I start being with myself completely, then that desire will, when I understand what's behind that desire, why do I want to achieve something? Accept that desire, accept that thing. If it's loneliness, fear, whatever, even give it compassion, then that desire, it doesn't disappear, but it becomes less and less powerful. So do you understand? It's hard to understand, especially experiential stuff is hard to explain because you have to experience them.
Yeah.
Buddha was a cool guy. I've read a lot of his stuff that supposedly he wrote, because he never wrote anything. His students wrote everything. But don't believe a word I say. Experience it. And this is something that, as long, we can talk for hours about meditation and anything, but in the end of the day, there's only one way to go to this, is to do it and to take it seriously, and don't treat it as another thing you do for self-improvement, because it's not.
Yeah.
It's a way to make your mind accept itself, be a better friend of itself, understand itself, and just in general be more of who you are.
So what are some of the, just see if we could put them together, giving, listing them more.
You see, but this is the thing. This is, I already talked with you. We in the West want like very clear kind of step-by-step things that go through and stuff like that. It doesn't work like this. Meditation doesn't work like this. It's not I will do this and then things will be better. It's about trying to alter little by little your state of mind, the way that you think about the world, the way that you think about yourself. It's not about achieving something. And again, it's hard. I know it's hard to understand that, because we are so educated on there is a purpose to everything. We need to do this to create this. We need to do this to create this. But it's not like that. And I think the main changes that I had towards how I felt about myself changed the more I took this seriously. That means the more you do it, the more you are consistent, and the more you read about it, it becomes, again, I have a problem with the word better. It just changes. Right. It will change you.
So what is your definition of mindfulness?
What's my definition of mindfulness? Definition of mindfulness is being aware of what's going on in your mind with the ability to accept completely what's going on without trying to change it and without judging. That's the definition of mindfulness. Now, you asked me before about tips for meditation, right? We talked about this. Meditation is a way. It's a practical technique and it's a way to get more better with your mind and a better relationship with your mind, and to have more time, because a meditation is a specific amount of time. Usually people have this specific amount of time. It could be 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And they just sit there and they take the time to make that connection with their mind, to see what's going on, to accept what's going on, all of that. But mindfulness doesn't have to be a meditation per se as we think about meditation. It could be an act of everything that goes on too. But, and this is if you want a tip, I'm not a tip guy, but if you want a tip here, the more you meditate physically, I mean that you stay on the ground, you do the whole meditation thing, you sit, you accept, you watch your mind, you breathe, you do the whole procedure of meditation. And I don't need to explain how to meditate, because there's so many different, apps today and stuff like that. But what I want to say is, the more you do that, the more you start noticing things in your mind outside of meditation.
What do you mean?
And then, for example, let's say I meditate today and I notice anger. And then when I notice anger, I feel it completely. I understand where it comes from. Anger usually comes, and this is the psychology of meditation. So Buddhists were psychologists. There were a psychologist sect that all they wanted to do is make people feel better. Okay, so that was stop suffering. Okay, So they didn't believe that by being rich you can stop suffering, because people who are rich are not necessarily happier. They didn't think that even by being happy you can stop suffering, because happy is a definition of what you think is a goal. So they redefined how you stop suffering. So when they created their thing, they were trying to see how to lessen the suffering in the world. That's their main objective. How do you create less suffer in the world? And when you look at a person who's angry, what always lies underneath that anger feeling? Okay. And in their definition, again, that's their psychology, it's Buddhist psychology. They say that what lies underneath anger is desire. You're angry because you want to change things from the way they are. Okay.
Right.
So I notice that, like, let's say I meditate. I'm like, I feel this anger inside of me. I'm like, okay, I know that anger comes from desire. What do I desire which makes me feel angry? And I don't have. And then I'd say, okay, because I'm lonely. Okay. And then I ask myself, is it okay to just be lonely, to feel lonely? Because it's a feeling in the end, right? And let's say it's okay. Let's say I get to that stage, this hard stage you get, but let's say I feel it's okay. I feel it in my body. I accept it. I feel compassion towards it. Okay. Now a person says something to me in real life now, right? We left that meditation bubble or whatever, and now we go to real life. Somebody said something to me and I react. I get angry. What happens when you meditate more and more, that reaction time till you understand why you feel angry and react in a different way becomes shorter and shorter. So some people need to review what happened. Why did I get angry? The more you meditate, the faster you understand why you get angry, because you've seen this before. It's like an old friend. You're like, okay, I've seen this guy before. Why is he here? Why is he not going away? And you see this guy and you're like, he comes every time I feel lonely. So it's not that I'm angry with that person. He just reminded me that I'm lonely, and that got me angry. I know that feeling lonely is okay with me, and I already felt loneliness, and it doesn't make me a bad person for feeling loneliness, right? So the main reason why I'm angry is not valid anymore. So when I get triggered, and trigger is a very common word today. When I get triggered today, from the point that I get triggered till I understand and calm down is way faster.
Right. So you have more space when you're meditating on those feelings in your bubble, or like in your room or your backyard or wherever you're meditating. That just provides the platform or the base for whenever you're in the real world and you get offended or triggered. Now you have more you have more tools or resources, or just you're built up to kind of prep yourself for that experience. It happens, but now you have more of an observational
exactly
instead
exactly
of identification with that.
Exactly. It's not me that's feeling that thing. It's my mind that's feeling that thing. My mind, and this is a thing I used to do. I used to treat or think about my mind as a small kid. Like, how do children work? Something happens, they react, right? There's a connection all the time. So I start looking at my mind as a small kid, and I'm like, this is why he's crying. This is why he's feeling bad. And then I understand it, I accept it, and I again, because of my training that comes from compassion, which is part of it, I also offer compassion to my mind. Like, you're not bad for feeling bad. You're just being you. So there's nothing wrong with my mind. You're just reacting in a way that a mind is going to react. So a lot of people feel guilt of being angry at something. I don't feel guilt when I'm angry. I'm just trying to analyze, okay, where did it come from? Why do I feel this way? What's underneath that? Where do I feel it in my body? So all these inquiry, it's a very inquisitive mind that you're trying to develop in mindfulness. You always try to see, okay, what's underneath? Where do I feel it? How do I feel it? And what happens is your brain starts to become a bit rewired. It starts to see things in a bit of a different way. And it's a very small change every time. There's different triggers, different levels. Your mind still reacts because it's still a mind, and it's still going to behave the way it behaves. But it's like, in a way, it's like training a puppy. You know, when you train a puppy, beginning is still shits on the floor and everything, and you're like, and then you say okay, and then and there's different ways to train the mind, the puppy, but like slowly becomes more and more trained. So the more you train your mind, the more you practice, the easier it is to do that switch from the bubble, which I call it my psychological, like, therapy session. So when I sit, it's like a therapy session for me. I like look at, sometimes things come up from the day before or week before, and I just observe them. I'm like, okay, now I'm interested. I'm curious. Why did I react this way? What happened? What's underneath? Did I see this before? And by the way, did I see it before is one of the most effective questions I've ever seen. Because for me, because what happens is when you start seeing these things repeating themselves, you understand that it's not that complicated. Like, your mind is not that complicated. It always looks like our mind is so random. It just creates stuff and creates stories, and you never understand why it does this. But you start to see it's repetitive. And then you become a bit more okay with it. You're like, okay, I know this. I've seen this before. It's okay. Nothing's wrong with what's happening right now. You understand?
Yeah, it's the acceptance. Acceptance is
Exactly.
the opposite of resisting. And when you resist what is, well, then of course that's going to cause problems, because you can't change what is, in the universe.
That's very philosophical. Yeah. You can't change what is. What is. Yeah.
What is.
But yeah. Yeah. And there's a saying in a lot of mindfulness, it's a couple of sayings that keep repeating themselves, like from old teachers and stuff. Like, if you've seen enough teachers, you start to sing things like they have like these sayings that keep repeating themselves. For one is, what resists persists.
Yep.
The other one I like, that I've heard so many times in so many guided meditations, and I use it in my own meditation. So you kind of steal stuff from other people also. So when you meditate, there's a saying that meditation teachers always say, nothing to do, no place to go. And it's funny, but it's such a simple sentence, but it carries so much. There's no place to go. That's acceptance. There's no place to go. Nothing you're going to do now is going to make your life better besides where you are right now and the way that you relate to that.
I love that mantra for meditation, because like one of the biggest obstacles in meditation and clearing your mind is all those thoughts that pop up of like, what did I do, or what do I still have to do? But that mantra of there's no place to go, there's no thing to do, that's a really good way to reduce all of those thoughts and just stop.
Yeah.
But it's hard to reduce them, but that's a good way to help.
There's a again, I'm going back to John Conflict because I like him. And again, I recommend everybody, if everybody who wants to go into this, there's a lot of good books around, but this called, I think, Awaken the Heart. It's really good. One of the things he talks about is that every time he meditates, and this is true for most people who meditate that I know, he calls it the top 10 list, like playlist. So the same things come up again and again. And one of the things, a classical thing comes up is to-do lists. I used to ask people, I was super interested when I went to ashrams and monasteries, and I would ask people, what happens when you meditate? And it would say, like, I was thinking, like, I need to buy a ticket, I need to call that guy, I need to cook dinner, I need to do research about this. And this is one of the things that happens. And the reason why it happens is very simple. The mind is resisting the fact that he has nothing to do. How mind wants to do.
The mind
wants to do. That's again the puppy thing. Have you ever seen like mostly puppies when they're young have so much energy, they just want to go all the time and just go crazy and move from one place to another. That's our mind. And in the Eastern philosophy, they all call the crazy monkey, the jumping monkey. That's our mind. It always wants to jump from one place to another and just change all the time. And that is true. We want to change. Even meditation becomes, and this is one of the things I love the voice is meditation for a lot of people becomes the thing to do. It's another thing to do. Like you can see people, I have to meditate half an hour now. I'm like, if you say you have to meditate, it kind of stops being meditation because it can be a to-do list. It's an observation. It's a place where you just are.
Yeah, the underlying principle of accepting what is really probably, one of the
what we talked about, being versus doing.
Biggest. So what about other things that have helped you? You're in a men's group of some kind.
One of the things that I've so every psyche, every human being is a bit different. I have this idea that every person is special in some ways. Special doesn't mean like better or worse. Special means he's different. And when I grew up, my difference was I was always more sensitive than a lot of the people I was around, especially guys. And when I did a mindful self-compassion training, I found that it's very interesting that when you go to a self-compassion training, there are basically two guys in a room of 50 people, which was weird for me. And I talked with the guy, and they even tried, the guy who organizes the whole thing, he told me that he tried to do like a man's group for self-compassion, and they opened a couple of courses, nobody came. Like it was hard to get 20 men to actually say, we want to go to a self-compassion thing, which intrigued me. Like I'm curious about it. Why does it happen? And I think it has to do a lot with society, the way that we are brought up, that men are not allowed to deal with their emotions and feelings and all that stuff. And then I looked for a man's group. I found somehow a man's group and I joined them. And it was the first time when I understood that men are actually pretty sensitive. And the amazing part is we meet once a week, and basically we just talk about stuff. And it's not about who played where. It's not about politics. It's not about, girls or whatever that subject is. We talk about things that really matter to man, as man, as perceptions and stuff like that. So we talk about stuff like emotions. How does it feel? How does it feel to be a dad? How does it feel to be a son? How does it feel to be a husband? How does it feel if someone is judged or it's a safe space. where you can actually be real. And it has to do with acceptance, because in this space, usually people accept who they are for what they are. They don't hide behind. And the funny thing is, it's like complete variety of people. Like, you wouldn't think that some of these guys, like a lot of them are like ex-military, tough guys, like, you know, strong guys. Could be like from truck drivers to to social workers. It can be any kind of, but they all have this in common, that they need a space to feel safe and accept the way they feel and accept who they are.
And share that.
And sharing, by the way, I always felt that sharing, the main reason why people share is they want to be accepted. They want to say, this is who I am, accept me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been doing some meditations for them about self-compassion. And let's say that compared to other places I've done it, it felt way better.
Because you've taught compassion, or
so I went to a training called Mindfulness Self-Compassion by a girl called Kristen Neff. She's a psychologist who created this kind of method. And basically, it's a mindfulness-based self-therapy kind of thing, which uses compassion instead of judging. So it has to do, it's very Buddhist. There's a lot of Buddhist principles there. Compassion is a huge principle in Buddhism. Mindfulness is huge. Of course, mindfulness is a huge part of Buddhism. So it combines meditation, self-compassion, acceptance. By the way, I don't know if you can see, this is another book, which is, I'm really bad at doing this. You can see this, right?
Radical Acceptance.
Yeah, she's another one of the smart women that came up from the time of Jack Cornfield. So they all support each other here in the West. It's kind of a cool community. But I think it started somewhere with Jack Cornfield, then it became Tara Brach. If you look up YouTube, you'll find her. She takes the part of Buddhism, which is acceptance, self-acceptance. And Kristen Neff took it as another step, which is self-compassion. By the way, all of them say the same thing. They just use it in a different language. You know, there's many ways to say truths. And at the end of the day, it's the same thing, okay? It's a way to view your mind, to start to understand the way that your mind works, and just train it and make it better, and make it and accept it, and be compassionate towards it. All of this is the same things. It's the same. The funny thing is, if you look at the hierarchy of this, so when Tara Brach wrote a book, Jack Cornfield wrote the foreword of the book for her. When Kristen Neff wrote the one on self-compassion, Tara Brach wrote the foreword for Kristen Neff. So it's like a hierarchy of teachers. It's beautiful how it works. So they created here in the West a lot of stuff that happens in Eastern philosophy, where teachers keep, you know, building on each other.
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful, man. So it's like a trilogy. It's cool. Like, you read Cornfield, then you read Brach, then you read, and they just, there's an evolution going there of better and better refining the same truth.
And shedding it in a different light.
Exactly, because again,
a tweak here or there.
These truths are a lot of the stuff we know. I don't think that if you tell a person that if he accepts himself, he'll feel better, I don't think most people will be shocked, right? Like, it's, but the way we are wired, it's not obvious. So we need to restudy it all the time.
Yeah, because a lot of people, they don't realize that we've been trained by society our whole lives, especially in the West, to not be okay with the way things are.
Again, I think that the West is a bit judging itself too much, the self-judgment of the West. Human behavior has been the same for many years. It's just became more extreme now. But if you think that there were more enlightened people 1,000 years ago in the East, they weren't. Okay, it's just also that self-blame that we are a super materialistic, super thing. That's also a not acceptance kind of thing. It is what it is. We are where we are. There's a reason why we are. This is another thing that you need to think if you want to feel better with life, is there's a reason behind it, that we are at that stage. And there's a reason why it happened, why we became so materialistic. But conveying that message to the human mind, you need to accept yourself. You need to be compassionate toward yourself. You need to love yourself. How many times have you heard about this concept of self-love? How many people do you think in the world really love themselves?
Yeah, I mean, you have to put the work in. It's not just immediate. Like you have to do that digging, like we've been talking about, where you go inside yourself and stay there.
Yeah, judgment is part of the human mind. Fear is part of the human mind. The question is, what do you do with it? So you can read these books once, like be like, oh, I'm going to read this thing. And I've done this many, many times. You know, like we talked about Power of Now. We don't have a lot of time, but we talked about the Power of Now. And I read the Power of Now and it blew my mind. And all of the stuff there is obvious, right? It's not like if you read it, like you say, okay, be in the pre-present, feel in the body. In the practical Power of Now, they talk about be present in the body, be in the moment. This is stuff that kind of logical, right? There's a huge difference between logical and how you experience stuff. Mm-hmm. You can understand Buddhism logically very well. It doesn't mean that it's going to transform anything in your life. So what I'm saying is rereading the same stuff, I think, in my opinion, is way better than trying to find a new book all the time.
Reading the same book multiple
times. The same book in different times in your life before meditation. And this is a tip that I'm gladly sharing with everyone. One of the things that worked for me is these books are on my meditation pillow. I have like maybe 5 books that I've accumulated through the last 2 or 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And I keep reading them again and again and again and again. And I read the passage and then I meditate. The day after, I read another passage and I meditate. And from all the techniques that I try to I don't know if words are kind of difficult to find when you talk about this stuff, but from all the stuff that I try to upgrade my meditation, this has been really effective.
Is the reading
and meditating about it, yeah,
book that really resonates with you, that you've learned a lot from in the past, you just reread it just a tiny bit and then you meditate afterwards.
Yeah.
That's been really helpful.
Yeah, I do this every morning. I just open one of the books randomly, by the way, and I just take a passage, one passage or one page or one idea, and then I meditate only in one idea.
So that's kind of like a focused meditation where you're thinking about that passage and letting it work.
So again, when you meditate, you can do many things. One is just to observe what's going on in your mind, or in my case, my mind is not cooperative with me as much. Like it doesn't, I can sit in meditation and nothing come up. And that's just the way it is now. But I don't feel like I'm doing the work. Again, words are complicated. So I sometimes just bring things up. You understand? Like okay, let's take something from radical acceptance and just meditate about that. Where do I feel it? Once you repeat the same, you see the same patterns again and again, something happens. Your mind is not as wild as it used to be. So I can sit 30 minutes and nothing comes up. Nothing. And it sometimes annoys me. That comes up. the annoyment that I don't see anything, because I'm like, I want to feel like kind of, I want to do this process. I like the process. I like raising something to my mind, feeling it in the body, understanding what's lying in underneath it, accepting that thing, and feeling compassion to it. This whole process that I do every time that I meditate, from random things, anxiety, yay. So that's how I feel about stuff today. It's not that, oh, anxiety, bad. No, it's like anxiety, yay, something to work with. So I just put it in my thing. I just go through that process. And when I get out of the meditation, it feels like you took like a shovel and went a bit deeper, and the gold is underneath. So it feels like that. That's how it feels. Every time I meditate, when I pick a subject, it feels like I'm going just a bit underneath.
Cool. Well, yeah, we are approaching the.
Yeah, that went fast.
But so I want to know about your progress with school, because you're studying right now theology even more. You had a master's in theology, and then now what are you studying?
So now I'm studying to be a psychotherapist, which uses mindfulness as a tool to help other people, and of course to be present while you help other people. So it's two parts basically. It's one, using techniques based on mindfulness to help other people. If it's meditation, prayer, cognitive, whatever. There's a lot of techniques now in the West which draw their essence from mindfulness-based techniques. If it's MDT, mindfulness dialectical therapy, or CBT, or there's a lot of them. I won't go into all of them, but psychologists are using more and more mindfulness in their therapy, because they understand that the mind is the mind, and all these techniques around it is in the end talking with the mind. So it doesn't matter what technique you use. And the second part was interesting for me is, how do you relate to your client? Are you able to hold that present? And I don't know if I talked with you about this. People try to avoid something that's called uncomfortableness. And if there's one place there's a lot of uncomfortableness, is in a counseling session. There's a lot of moments where a person cries in front of you, where he says something which is super deep and super and it creates kind of an emotion inside of you that you want to push it away. And that's one of the things that you work in this university on, to be in that uncomfortableness.
What else do you like about the course, the university?
First of all, I've never been in a university where you learn academic stuff and the same time you just, okay, I have a meeting with my meditation teacher. It just feels cool. And it's now I need to post, I have till 12 o'clock, but I need to post my thoughts about, I had to post already, I posted about my meditation this week. And then people answer about my meditation this week. And then I answer them about their meditation in the week. So everybody's supporting each other in their meditations. And Buddhists will always tell you that one of the things that you need to go to meditation, this is maybe another tip or whatever you want to call it, you need something called a sangha. A sangha is a community that you go through that process, because this is a therapy process. Meditation is a therapy-based process. You trying to heal yourself in the end. So you can do it by yourself, or you can do it with a bunch of people who understand what you're going through. It's always better to do it with other people. The first couple of years I was like, I don't need anyone. I can do this by myself. I don't need. But there's something about the interaction of, you do something, you see a response, you learn from it, you try better, you do it again, you understand what's going on, and you learn from each other. So I recommend for anyone, besides going to these 10 days retreats we talked about, you said tell people about like where do they need to go if they want to experience this kind of thing. So there's a 10-day retreat, so there's a weekend kind of retreat where you can go and experience this for the first time, and you will understand some things about yourself and you want others, and it will be hard for you in the first couple of times. But one of the things I think everybody who goes through this meditation practicum needs is to find a bunch of people who go through this process together.
And you found that with the men's group, that was one of the
The
strengths.
men's group, I feel like I have a bunch of people to do therapy to. That's how I feel. Don't tell them that too, but I hope they don't listening for this. But I'm saying, like, it's kind of an experience for me to see how people. Again, I'm super curious about the human mind, super curious. But my mind alone is not enough for me to be curious about, because my mind is my mind, but I like to see, how does his mind work? How do your mind work? How does other people's mind work? It's interesting for me. So this is a space where people share the way their mind works, and we talk about it. So for me, it's like a candy shop, like a bunch of people who talk about feelings and thoughts and stuff like that. It makes me excited.
And then the same thing goes for your university, the structure.
Exactly.
Where everyone just shares what's going on in their
it is it's very intense. And one of the reasons I chose to do this is because I knew that I'm not going to be the same person in 2 years that I am now, or that I was a month ago. Because when you dedicate 3 years and you need to make some kind of commitment, and this is another thing, meditation is, for me, it's everything. Like it means so much to me in so many different ways. But commitment is a huge thing here. And it's easier to commit, like a lot of things in life. It's easier to commit when you have a specific, a bunch of people around you, and also you have a time thing. Like, I'm going to do this for 3 years intensely. And I want to see what happens if I do this intensely for 3 years, not by myself, with other people. And I'm accountable. This is another thing. And accountability is a huge thing in life, and it's a huge thing in meditation also. You need to be accountable to yourself and towards others, and others towards you, and all of that. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's so cool, because I think it's like what makes us human, because we're actually social creatures. And so that sharing with other people, there's some reason that in our DNA, it feels really good. And then that same goes for accountability. That's it.
Yeah.
Because we need that other person for whatever reason. It's a society where we're a community. We work better as a community than individuals, and that accountability is big for that.
Yeah, it goes back to the fact that we never could survive alone. Again, I'm always curious about the origin of the mind, but a mind was created to deal with life hundreds of thousands of years ago. And the way we dealt with life was hunting or gathering or whatever we did to survive. And in a community, the chances of survival were much higher than by yourself.
Yeah.
So we grew up these social skills to be able to survive. But a lot of what society means to us also created us a lot of pain. If it's like the way we think about how people think about us. So all these things are, like, again, as a curious person, I'm always curious about why we think the way we do. Why do we behave the way we do? Why do we react the way you do?
Oh yeah, same here.
And it also brings a lot of compassion towards other people. Because once you understand that people behave the way they behave because that's the way they are, that's the way it is. Like, it's not like they woke up one day and said, I want to be an asshole today. It doesn't work like this. Nobody really wants to be an asshole. Some people behave like assholes because they are reacting to something. They're reacting to the loneliness, to the anger, to the whatever, doesn't matter. Something to society, the desire that they're not getting what they want. So it creates a lot of compassion and understanding.
All right. Well, you got any parting words of wisdom for us, or things that you really just want to point out?
No.
Books or
no. I just hope that some people will listen to this and say, this is intriguing enough, and be curious enough to try to go down that road. And it's not easy. I don't think anything worthwhile in life is easy. But for me, it's the most transformative thing I've ever done in my life.